Here's another common problem that comes up all the time, sort of in a different industry, which is in banking. And you may not realize this, but this is a great meme that somebody sent me yesterday for this talk. The entire banking world and our whole economy is built on Microsoft Excel, and which is terrifying if you realize what's going on. So this is another problem that comes up. We talked about this issue of data access. I call this problem, and this is actually coined by a friend of mine in the banking industry, the problem of data contraband. So here's what happens. You go into you want to do a data project. Okay, you need the data. The data is stored in some database. You need to make a report. So you go and you pull the data out of the database into a spreadsheet. And then now you've got a data in Excel, and then you make a report. Then somebody asks you for that data. So you email it to them. Okay, now instead of that person going to the database and using a piece of software and pulling it out, they got it from email. Next thing you know, there's emails with data floating all around. And you might have I actually heard this from a fellow at one of the major investment firms, I can't say, who said, yeah, we had this problem that, there was a guy who worked for us. All his data was in his emails. He was emailing it back and forth to people. He left the company, and now we have to go into his email logs to get the data that we need. And it's a disaster. So, and moreover, it's, so basically think of it like, you're asking to get data from a friend, but this causes a massive compliance problem. So you might be going to an organization saying, I have to deal with data compliance, and you find out people are just passing spreadsheets around left and right and emailing each other data. And this is just a nightmare. And I know so many people who work in the industry. I have one fellow who was a friend of mine who is a head of data at a company, says, my entire career lives on data contraband. It's all he does. But this is a huge problem for data. So what are the solutions to this? Well, one solution is use stored procedures or Spark. In other words, you move the functions to the data. You don't pull the data out of the database and do things. You try to do things inside the database, so you remain compliant. Maybe you can't do that. So maybe you do have all these spreadsheets. Well, I talked to a very large firm in Europe that, I think if I remember, it was may have been the investment house for the Catholic Church. And they have all this data in spreadsheets for all of their real estate properties for the entire Catholic Church. And they're trying to get it all into SAP. And this is like a multi-year project to get every piece of data that's in a spreadsheet, stick it into SAP. So at least you can start tracking it. And so you actually don't, there are places that are so large, they don't actually know their assets, because you have 300 people in the organization. Everyone has their own data sets. Everyone has their own spreadsheets. Nobody knows what the total assets of the firm are. When I was at BlackRock acquired Lehman Brothers. Lehman Brothers had 2,000 databases set up. They had more databases than they had customers. We had to unravel that entire mess. So, if you start seeing, if you're passing data around, one of the solutions is try to get into some sort of tracking system where you're getting people to use an environment where they're still functional, like an SAP or a Google Sheets where you can track it. The other option is if you're using systems like email, Gmail, Outlook, there are document tracking systems, Jira, GitHub, Confluence. There are some fairly good document tracking systems that are used that you can use to solve